Let me know when you're ready, Shell. Oh, okay, got it. All right, welcome everybody. We are going to try and keep this to probably what 30 to 45 minutes. We know some people are using their lunch hour to do this, so we want to be respectful of your time. Know that everything we talk about today, we can't get into like super specifics with people's situations. So we're going to speak a little bit more generally, but certainly if you have follow-up questions, you can contact either one of us, following this, and we can set up a time to chat further. My name is Lucinda Testo. I am a psychotherapist and a divorce recovery coach. So I've been a psychotherapist for, actually this year, I think it'll be 20 years. And in my therapy private practice, I see lots of people that have a range of issues going on, but I do specialize in seeing people who are kind of in that contemplative stage of divorce of like, do I stay or do I go? Um, so, or maybe some people have started the divorce process and, their emotions are all over the map. I kind of help them with that as well. Let me just share my screen here. There I am. Minimize this. There we go. And then I do divorce recovery coaching, which is not therapy, but it is very targeted to kind of helping people rebuild the next chapter of their life. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I am a therapist, I'm a coach, and I'm also a former divorced mom. I divorced my kid's dad when my kids were 4 and 8 months old. So my kids were super young at the time. That was almost 12 years ago. I've got lots of life experience, and so personal and professional experience. So first thing I'm going to go over are the top 10 reasons people stay in unhappy or unhealthy marriages. Now, one of these may not resonate with you, or all 10 of them may resonate with you, or there may be some on this list that are not on your list. So I'm going to go through these quickly. So the first one I hear from clients is time invested in the marriage, right? I have clients that are like, yes, but I've been with my partner since I was 19 years old, or we've been together for 30 years. And they really have that feeling of like, I've invested so much time. How can I just let this go? So that is probably one of the number one things that I hear from clients. The second thing, if children are involved, is the impact that it will have on kids. People are so afraid of getting a divorce and screwing up their kids, so to speak. And what I will tell you is, it's not divorce that like screws kids up. It's the parents' behavior in the divorce that actually has the biggest negative impact on kids. So a lot of what I do with clients who are kind of in that divorce process is a lot of coaching around how to interact with their soon-to-be ex or how to talk to their kids about things. But the impact on kids is huge. And people also worry, like, I don't want to split custody with, my spouse, should we get divorced? And that's also something that's really hard for people to kind of wrap their head around, especially if they're used to obviously seeing their kids every day. The third thing, and I hear this all the time, is holding out hope that their partner will finally change, right? I hear from clients all the time. I keep asking him or her to, do these three things so that, I can be happier, we can be happier. And they change for a little bit of time and then it goes back to the way it was before. But when their partner does change for that small period of time, it's kind of like, see, I knew that they were capable of it. Like, this can totally work. But then when things revert back to the way they have been, which has been the root of a lot of unhappiness, it kind of keeps you like on this merry-go-round. Number 4 is the guilt or fear of being selfish. So I hear this a lot, especially from my female clients. It's very common that right? For years, you're telling your partner how you feel. And then you get to the point where you're kind of like checked out and done. And then the partner is like, okay, then fine, we'll go to couples counseling. But at that point, like they're already checked out. And even if their partner did everything that they've always wanted them to do, like those feelings are gone. The analogy I use with my clients is, you didn't just wake up one day and decide I'm going to get divorced. It's been an erosion over time of the relationship. And so, guilt is very common, but you didn't just wake up one day and decide to get divorced. It's typically as a result of things that have been going on over a very long period of time. Number 5, fear of feeling like a failure or judgments from others. So I know for me personally, my parents have been married. I think this year it'll be 54 years. Obviously, when I got divorced 12 years ago, it hadn't been 54 years, but I came from a family where almost nobody was divorced. And so I had a ton of shame around the fact that I was a failure. I was getting divorced and that didn't feel good. Some people feel this from their community. Some people feel it from friends or from their partner who doesn't like the idea of a divorce. So fear of failure or judgments from others is another one. And then we can call out the elephant in the room. Finances is probably, if not number one, almost number one reason why people fear divorce is, I want to stay in my house. Can I afford it? I've been a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad for years, and I don't have the money coming in, or rents are so expensive. Finances plays a huge role in keeping people kind of stuck in unhappy or unhealthy marriages. I will also share, I had an ex-husband who was not good with finances. He tried to start unsuccessfully multiple businesses that got us in a really bad financial situation. And so when I ended up moving forward with divorce, it was like absolutely terrifying to me. I won't share exactly how much debt I was in, but there was a ton of debt. And, I can't tell you how it's going to be okay. All I can tell you is many times it does end up being okay. And so many things have opened up for me that I am now more than financially comfortable. So I know finances are a huge fear for many people. Number 7, fear of ending up alone and never finding love again. I have a lot of clients that are like, oh my God, like I don't want to do online dating. I don't want to have to start my life all over again. What if I never meet anybody? What if I end up being like, the old cat lady or the old cat guy, that's got 45 cats, which there's nothing wrong with cats. I love cats. But they have this fear of being alone forever. And what I will say is definitely go to therapy. Go to therapy, do coaching, because there could be a great person out there that is like a great match for you, where the relationship feels easy and fulfilling. Number 8, complacency. And what I mean by complacency is like, is it really that bad? Right? Like maybe your relationship has like peaks and valleys, and like sometimes things are like okay, and sometimes they're like a little bit better, and sometimes they're worse. But when you're kind of in that place where it's like, is it really that bad? Like, aren't all relationships kind of like this? That can keep people stuck too, right? Like, is it really that bad? Number 9 is the fear that their partner will change for someone else. This one actually kind of surprises me that I hear it so commonly, but you worry that, you divorce your spouse and then they go out and find a new partner pretty quickly, and they step up and they be the partner that you always wished you had, right? And then you have like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have gotten divorced. I knew he or she was, capable of being better. So fear that their partner will change for someone else is a big one. And then let's call a spade a spade. The thought of divorce feels incredibly overwhelming. Um, Having been divorced myself, it does kind of like blow up life. And then you gotta kind of put the pieces back together. Um, it's like an emotional whirlwind, and it's not easy. And so sometimes it's like, is my marriage really that bad? And honestly, that's a judgment call for you. So those are the top 10 reasons I hear most from clients who are kind of feeling stuck in unhappy or unhealthy marriages. So how do you decide what's the right answer for you? It is not my job as a therapist or coach to tell anybody you need to get divorced or you should keep trying. That's not my job. My job is to ask you questions to gain clarity around like what is right for you. So these are some things that you can consider. How long have you been unhappy in your marriage? Has it been, like a great marriage up until like a couple of weeks ago? Or has it been unhappy from the start? Or I hear many times it kind of started to go downhill after kids were in the picture. So how long have you been unhappy in your marriage? Next is, what are some of the emotional effects that it's having on your marriage is having on you or on your kids? So what comes to mind is sometimes I hear people say that they have a very like volatile spouse. And so they and their kids are, constantly feeling like they're walking on eggshells. So, is your nervous system always on high alert because you never know what kind of mood your spouse is going to be in? Or, are they volatile? Or do they have substance abuse issues? Or, there's many things to consider, but what kind of emotional effect is it having on you and your kids? Because the marriage that you're in is the marriage that you are modeling for your kids. If you had kids, I understand not everybody has kids, or some people have kids that are grown. Really asking yourself what would need to change for you to stay in your marriage and be happy. And then, is that actually possible? Excuse me. Have you tried couples counseling? Sometimes there's one side of the couple that's resistant, or sometimes one side of the couple is resistant until the other side of the partner says, like, that's it, I'm done, I want a divorce. And then they're like, wait, fine, I'll go. Sometimes it's too late, but I suggest for everybody, if you haven't tried couples counseling, try it. Even if it ends up resulting in a divorce, you can at least work on parting amicably. And then asking yourself, what is like your biggest fear if you pursue divorce, right? Like, what are the things that you're worried about? And then what is your biggest fear if you don't pursue divorce and you end up staying in a marriage that you've been unhappy in for a while? All right. You don't have to do this alone. So again, I'm a therapist, I'm a trained coach. I've also been through my own divorce. My goal, especially in my therapy practice, is to help you feel confident about your decision, whichever way you decide to go. If I have clients that are like, I really want to make my marriage work, that is how I support them. I try and give them tools and strategies. I do not do couples counseling, by the way. But I try and give them strategies to help make a positive impact in their marriage, understanding that I'm only working with one side of the couple. And then I'm kind of action oriented to help you move towards your goals. That's just kind of my style. I have a very kind of life coaching style of therapy. So as I shared, I do psychotherapy. These are the insurances that I take. I do have a Facebook group. Sorry for any guys in the group, but it's called the Divorced Mom Sisterhood. And I started it because I was a divorced mom and I was looking for a safe space for people to come and ask questions and find community. And this is where you can find me. So the Divorce Mom Sisterhood is more of my coaching stuff. My Instagram is also coaching. The Unlimited You LLC is my psychotherapy private practice. And then lucindatesto.com is my coaching business. And then that's my email. So if you have further questions after this, or if you want to do a quick chat, if you've been looking for a therapist, don't hesitate to reach out. And that is my piece. So Shel, I'll let you jump in and
Yeah, before I start my presentation, does anybody have any questions for Lucinda? You could drop them in the chat if you so choose. You could even, the two, you can change it and be directed to Lucinda herself personally, if you want to do that. But please, I'm monitoring the chat. I'll try to do my best while I'm, but maybe Lucinda, you can monitor the chat while I'm doing my presentation.
Of course.
Okay, so wonderful information, Lucinda. I'm gonna go at this from a little different view. It's more gonna be process oriented, so that process of going through the divorce, right? You want to get a divorce, but you don't even know where to start, right? So I'm going to try to give you some of that information now on how you move through that. So kind of like that number 10 you were talking about, right, Lucinda? Like you're just unsure of
The
how
overwhelm.
that process is. Yeah, that
Yep.
overwhelm. You feel like you're going to be, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to be blunt. Divorce doesn't really have to suck, the divorce process. Is it going to be a roller coaster ride? I think whether I see from my clients, I've been through my own divorce as well. And this is why I started this business, was because I did feel like my divorce sucked. I felt like I needed somebody to help me through it and needed a little more guidance. So that's what I try to bring to my clients, is just that. My background's in finance. I have my master's in accounting, and I worked in financial services over 20 years. So I bring that along with my certified divorce financial analyst. That's my background's all about finances. So I help try to be the voice of reason. Like Lucinda was talking about before, like, should you keep the house? A big thing for me is affordability and making sure all my clients know what their future holds. Okay. So where do you start when you're thinking about contemplating divorce? I mean, I think really what you start with is Lucinda, and walk through what that looks like, right? And she really deals with that emotional aspect of it. There's going to be emotions when you're going through the process. I look at it like a roller coaster ride. Some days are good, like it's okay. And whether you're the one contemplating, or you're the one that the divorce kind of landed on your doorstep, it's going to be different for each of them. But both of you are going to experience this roller coaster ride. And it's almost like a grief process, right? You're grieving that marriage. So it's very similar to grieving a death, but it's the death of that marriage, right? So you walk through being in denial, being angry, and eventually you're going to get to acceptance and hopefully be able to move on into your next chapter. So this is me. I'm a divorce specialist. I do mediation. That's couples mediation. I'll go into a little more of that in a personal divorce guide. So here are some of my discussion points for today. Kind of going to show you what do I think success looks like for individuals, the types of divorce, what you should do, how to navigate the process, and then tips for avoiding some pitfalls. So here's this. Every divorce looks different. Why does it look different? Mostly because of your financial portfolio, to tell you the truth. So what could happen in one marriage and divorce cannot happen in another divorce. Every one of them is very unique. So what does success look like for you? Is coming up with that fair and equitable settlement. Making sure you're not taken advantage of, trying to keep the peace, and having enough money to start fresh. in your new life. It doesn't necessarily, it can't happen for everyone, but I like to really try it with my couples, giving them different suggestions. So maybe there's debt in your portfolio that we can potentially relinquish in the divorce agreement. And trying to find that peace, right? I like to like the reason why I like mediation so much, and I'll go through the different ways, is because I really feel like it sets you up for success. It sets you up for success to be good co-parents with one another. And it's also really great for your children. Is divorce hard for kids? Yes, but they are probably, and Lucinda can probably attest to this, they are a little more resilient than us as adults are, right? And they don't want to see their parents arguing. They also don't want to be brought into the divorce process, right? So mediation keeps them out of it, and it keeps it peaceful, and it allows you both to be really good co-parents. I tell my clients or my consultation clients that if you can even try it, it's worth it. If you feel like you could get through some of it, you're better off. You've made decisions. You've probably got your finances in order, and you can move forward and spend less on those attorneys, right? So it is really a great process. So here are the types of divorces, right? Hopefully you guys can see this okay. The first type of divorce, which I don't recommend this, but you can do it pro se. You can do it yourself. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be filled out, whether you do any of these, because that's the court system for you, right? And they're going to get some money out of you. Is it cheaper to do pro se? Yes. But my concern with some of the people that I've seen go through this process is that they get taken advantage of, because somebody may not be disclosing everything that they should. And the other processes, they have to, and they will, and there'll be somebody that will be looking at that and making sure that they have disclosed everything, right? But in this scenario, I see people getting taken advantage of a lot because of either somebody hiding something or somebody even manipulating the other person. It can happen so easily. You might still trust your spouse, and you can get into like a world of hurt for your financial future. You know, I hear people say, I just want this done, right? I hear this all the time, right? That I get that. I understand it. I've been there myself, but just make sure that you get everything that you deserve. And it's not just about you. It's, if you have kids, it's about them as well, right? You don't want to leave anything on the table. If you only have to spend another month or two doing it, it is worth it in your future. And then there's the litigation process. This is the traditional one, right? Everyone has an attorney, and you send these issues into into the family court to resolve them. I would say even if you don't try, the most conflict comes out of this scenario, right? And it does get rather expensive in here. I've seen recently where people have had to put a $15,000 retainer down to do litigation, and that's just for one party, right? So very expensive. Of course, I'm in Connecticut, so hopefully most of you, I'm trying to keep this neutral, so it's not just about Connecticut in case there's anybody else out there, but in some parts of Connecticut, if you're from here, you know that the southern part of Connecticut is going to be much more expensive than Greater Hartford area, but it still gets expensive up here. Danbury too can get very expensive. That's where I heard of the $15,000 retainer, which I thought was crazy. And then I'm going to talk about mediation. So I am a trained mediator, but this is the process I feel like becoming more and more popular. And it's because it is a lower cost alternative. It does take less time. I've seen people make it through the mediation process in 3 months. In Connecticut, a lot of these clients, they don't even enter the courtroom, which is wonderful. That's what we're trying to do, is stay out of the courtroom. And you have a third party help you make those good decisions, okay, and reach a settlement option. And then there's the collaborative. I would say this is kind of in between the litigation and the mediation. You have a team. Each spouse retains an attorney, you sign an agreement, you work together, you resolve it all, but you have a team behind you. So this is kind of a mix between traditional and mediation. Okay. And here I would say, if you're in the contemplation phase, this, and you're not ready to kind of pull the trigger, you're kind of still talking to Lucinda, and you're trying to make that decision. In unison, you can start getting those finances together. I do have a great checklist on my website if you want it, but here are the things to start with. Get all your bank statements together. Get your home mortgage. What does it look like? You can even get a value analysis done by a real estate agent. I advise not to look on Zillow because that's just an algorithm. So it kind of puts you all over the place, right? Retirement statements. Like this is a big one of getting these. This kind of holds up the process a lot, these retirement statements, because I find a lot that people don't even review them often, right? Or know what they have. So they're having to contact HR, especially if you have a pension, you're like, I don't know, I wasn't even looking at that, right? And so having to dig into this usually has taken some of my clients like months to even figure out where to go, right? So get those retirement statements. Tax returns, get those all in order. Look at them. They are a treasure trove of information. They'll tell you if you have investments somewhere. They might not necessarily tell you where, but that you have investments. If you're getting dividends, you're getting interest, and what you're doing, you can see everything in there. There might be schedules, maybe reported capital gains, or maybe it tells you a lot about a business. You have Schedule C, right? And then credit reports, run them. It's a good idea to run them every year anyways, to see if you have any errors on there, but also run, if you can, run your spouses. Look at that. What does it look like? How much debt are you in? Get an idea. And then business finances. Like I said, like those Schedule Cs on the tax return, they can tell you a lot of information, but getting those together. You're going to need to disclose your business if you have one. And, you know, people ask me, like, why should I get these together right now? Because I'm going to have to do it again. This gives you a great idea of where you are now. Okay, especially the credit report. And if anything changes from this point to when you have to kind of pull that financial affidavit together, that's what it's called, the court order that kind of gives all the finances. You'll know, and you'll have the ability to ask questions, and nothing's better than being prepared and organized. It sets you up for success, and it also relinquishes some of that fear. So how do you navigate the process, right? I would say do your due diligence, dot those I's, cross those T's, get educated, because each state is different. In Connecticut, it's called a fair and equitable state. Most states are like this, except for a few out west, community property states, but fair and equitable. Fair is going to mean something different to each of you. Equitable is going to mean as close to 50-50 as possible. Does everything wind up there? No, but that's what you're trying to do. And do you need to hire an attorney? No, not necessarily. You can go down that mediation route. I would say that one thing I want to mention about that mediation is there is a place for attorneys in this process. I have clients either retain somebody right at the beginning, so they have the ability to ask questions. But the majority of my clients, after we reach that settlement, they hire an attorney called a review counsel to review their settlement in their own interest. Do you have to serve your spouse? If you do mediation in Connecticut, the answer is no, but you're going to want to find out that for your own state. But in Connecticut, if you do mediation, that's the time that you don't need to serve your spouse. And is there a waiting period to get divorced? In Connecticut, it's 90 days. I know there's some states that are a year. So find out what your state, the waiting period is to get divorced. That's usually from the point in Connecticut when you get served and when you finally file in the court system. And then what is considered marital property? So this is always like a big conversation. Marital property is anything that has increased in value or you've acquired during the course of your marriage. Okay. So you've been married 10 years, that span of time, that's all the marital property, whether it's in your name, whether it's in both of your names, whether it's in their name, it's still marital property. Separate property is anything that you acquired prior to your marriage, a gift or an inheritance. So that's, we could go in more detail. And then here's some tips, just some final tips to avoid some pitfalls. Before you file, get some cash on hand, no matter how you do that, right? And make sure it's accessible so you can hire a team. You can have some attorneys require a fee for doing a consultation. If you're in that stage where you're just still contemplating, I would stay with the attorneys and the mediators and the CDFAs and the coaches that don't have a retainer. But if it's somebody that you really want, then that's when you pull the trigger and you pay that cash for that consultation. And then get prepared. All those things I've told you about before. I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. It makes you less afraid and better able to act when you are prepared. And here's a big one for me. Don't mix money with emotions. I see this happen, and I don't, nothing against, the difference between men and women, right? A house for women can be a place of refuge. I see that so much in them. I try to be that voice of reason so they can see the affordability, but don't keep a property, especially a home, right? It really is just a material thing. I know it had some sentimental value, but don't make it put you in the poorhouse, right? Don't use all your child support and your alimony just to stay in the house. It could be detrimental for your finances later on. And then I say fight for what is yours. I don't want you to fight for it, but I don't want you to underestimate what your needs are going to be. And women tend to not want to take advantage of their spouse in divorce. And it's not about taking advantage of them. It's just getting what is rightfully yours. And don't ignore the tax consequences. So everything in divorce has a tax consequence. So make sure you understand that, those short and long implications. And divorce, as Lucinda said, divorce is really too complicated to go alone. Make sure you have a support system. And I don't even mean the friends and family. I mean those professionals, because it really is a different arena and every divorce is different. So what happened to in your friend's divorce might not be applicable to you. And it might be, it's confusing, it's overwhelming, right? But if you have the right team by your side, you can get through this, and divorce doesn't have to suck because you have a team beside you. So here's some of my services that I offer. I'm a personal divorce guide. So what does that mean? I work one-on-one. I support this person through the entire process. I help them navigate it. I answer questions for them. I help them get their financials organized. Completing in Connecticut, it's called a financial affidavit. Other places, it's called different things like financial summary. But getting all of that organized, getting it all together, helping them understand it, and talk about even, simple things. I'm here to like kind of guide you and give you my opinion or my guidance. I educate you on the implications, connect you to trusted referral partners, and you save money with me because you can keep the emotion with me and the finances with me, and they'll be all set for you going down the road. And then I'm a mediator. So what does that mean? I help that couple make good decisions in divorce. It's a streamlined process. It's less stressful. It's cost effective. you get my specific divorce financial expertise, and I give you clear data to help you make those decisions and understand the financial impacts. And the biggest benefit here is to your children. And here's my information if you'd like to contact me. I'd be happy to have a exploratory conversation that's completely confidential to see how you can move forward. Even if you're not ready, let's talk. So you can get prepared and organized and know what is needed to be successful. Okay, that was me.
All right, Shell, I think
Okay.
you have a few questions.
Okay.
And maybe if you want to read them out loud. And...
Okay. The first one I see is, will you be sharing your presentation with us via email after the session? I would be, yeah, definitely happy to. I think Lucinda said yes too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. That was a good question. When you say getting those statements together, does everything need to be on the paper to present to a mediator or attorney? Most of everything we have now is online and paperless. Good question. Every attorney does things a little differently. I would say it does not have to be on paper. The way I collect mine is I utilize a Dropbox. I know a lot of people do that now. Or they use kind of like a Google Drive, something like that to capture the information. So no, especially if you're just like kind of gathering it, don't print it out unless you have to. We could save some trees that way, right? Okay. My husband handles all the finances and taxes. That's so common. There's usually, everybody has roles in a marriage, right? I actually handled the finances in my marriage. So my husband had a hard time with this one. You can request, if your name's on something, you can definitely request it. Pick up the phone, get it. If you use TurboTax, I hesitate in telling people to kind of go into a credit card statement, because you're going to understand this when I say this, the credit card statement, income tax, especially if you use TurboTax, because sometimes that email address will get an alert that says somebody's trying to log into your TurboTax, your credit card statement, and it will go to like, that main person. So you try to avoid that, but definitely pick up the phone and call. You get credit cards. You maybe have the number on the back of the credit card statement, call, right? Run your credit report too, and see it there. Taxes, you get it, if they get it done by like a tax professional, definitely call them and say, I want to get a copy of the tax return, right? There are years when we know we owe back taxes, but I have no idea which years are still outstanding. Yeah. I mean, you should be able to call the IRS, especially like given your social security number, right? I've actually never had anybody that didn't know, that knew that they had maybe outstanding ones, but you should be able to, yeah, call that. My husband lost his job last year. Would he be entitled to alimony? So alimony is a funny thing, especially in Connecticut, because there is no hard and fast rule. There's no formula for alimony. It's really like somebody's ability to pay and the other's need. It is a negotiation piece, right? It really is. It's negotiable. Some states have like an actual calculation, but Connecticut doesn't. I would say mediation, we look at what's that number. I give people advice. I do an analysis on what do I think alimony should be. Would he be entitled? It'd all be, based, I can't give you a yes or no answer, right? But and I would say alimony, it's changed like over the years, right? It used to be people got it for like a long period of time. It's really to fill a gap, right? Between being married and living with a spouse and trying to be self-sufficient. So I know that wasn't a good answer because that was like a roundabout answer, but that's what happens with alimony, unfortunately. So the process of when you tell your spouse, and if you need to move with your child, from what I gather, serving them is key. The process of when you tell your spouse and if you need to move with your child. Serving them is key. I'm not quite sure what this is asking. Do you know, Lucinda? I mean, maybe Danielle,
Maybe like,
because you have to serve them in order to move.
yeah, I think that's what she's asking.
Okay.
It says you have for her to move with
Move.
the child or the children.
Yeah, I would say, and I'm going to give this more of a financial view, not a legal perspective, because there is some legal aspects here, and it's different depending on what state you're in. But I would ask an attorney about that specifically if you're talking about, because there's abandonment issues or something like that, because there's like talk of that. But I would say financially, most of my clients live in the same household until they're like almost ready to file, right? And everything has kind of been put in order. From a financial standpoint, it's beneficial. It's hard. I would say this is probably what sets people on the roller coaster ride is you're still living with them, right? I lived with my ex until we finalized. Actually, I lived with him until we sold the house, and that was much longer than when we finalized. And it can be very, very difficult, right? But financially, it helps you get through, who's going to be paying the mortgage, who's going to be paying all these things. Like you have to have that all in order. You can't just like drop someone and walk away, right? You have to figure that all out, and you do that through the divorce process. So financially beneficial to stay until you realize what kind of money you have to move forward. That makes sense. Makes sense, hopefully. Would you recommend also speaking with a CPA about tax issues, or does the mediator attorney typically handle that? So no, I would say most mediators and attorneys don't handle that. You can't expect them to have financial expertise. I'm a little different because I'm a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst. So I would say that's who you contact if you want to know anything about divorce and financially related, is somebody who has that expertise about divorce and taxes. A CPA might not necessarily have the background in divorce. They don't know that you can do things differently in divorce than you can do in real life. So that's my 2 cents. If you're going through a separation, how does it work with filing taxes? Whatever you are at the end of the tax year. So in 2003, if you were married, you should either do married filing jointly or married filing separately. If you were divorced, you either do head of household or single. That's if you're just separated, you should do, and you don't want to do taxes with your soon to be ex, you do married filing separately, right? But if you can still do that jointly, do it. You get a better benefit that way. I think I answered everything. I'm not sure, but hopefully I did. If anybody has anything else, and if I didn't answer it well, do I have to go back up?
It looks like you got everything.
Oh, yes, I did speak with an attorney. I just never understood the whole serving them piece. So the serving them, right, is how the process gets started in litigation. Really, that's the only way to describe it. It's some paperwork you have to fill out, but it starts the whole process, right? It's just kind of a marshal does it. It doesn't really and like I said, in mediation, you don't even have to do that part. You don't do the serving piece. Okay. It's just like, I would say, and maybe say it in a different way, is it's that chalk line of when you started. That's how they do it, is this is your separation date, is when you get served. Does that make sense, Lucinda? Right? Like that.
Yeah, I mean, I had gone to court to file for the divorce, and then I had to pay a marshal
Yep.
to have my now ex-husband served.
Yes. So you say you'd want a divorce and then, for instance, compact a mediator. Yes. I would say most people, they contact me when they're just contemplating and they're like, how do I do this? And I'm like, we can just start. So if you contact a mediator and say, I want to get a divorce, usually, when I do a consultation with someone, I offer that same consultation to the other spouse. And so they can have their concerns heard, make sure that they're comfortable with me. So that's how we start. And then we sign a contract, and schedule our first session. So yeah. Okay, I thought they had to be served. Not in Connecticut. If you're someplace other than Connecticut, you have to like read up or talk to somebody that's in the state. But in Connecticut, no, you can waive. It's obvious. It's a piece of paperwork that you have to fill out. Waive the 90-day waiting period, and also that they like their paperwork.
If you scroll up a couple, there's another
Okay.
question.
If I serve and have primary responsibility of the children, but he makes more money, does he have the right legally to stay in the home, even if I want him to move? Or would he have any legal rights to kick me out of the house? That's definitely a legal question. So I'm gonna say, contact an attorney and ask that one. I don't want to give you bad information. If he can stay there or not. I'm not an attorney, so I can answer financial or what am I missing? I think I got them right.
Yes, I don't see any
Yeah.
others.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm like scrolling, trying to be, but anybody else have any questions?
Oh, there's one more that just came in.
Oh, in some states, you can serve your spouse through the mail. Oh, Shelley. Hi, Shelley. I was served this way. It was kinder. And she's in Washington State. So yeah, some
Okay.
states are different. If both partners agree to financial separation, if both parties agree to financial, does this need then to be certified by the state? So I think you're asking legal separation versus divorce specifically, right? And maybe I'm misreading that, but even if you do legal separation, you're actually still considered married in the eyes of the state. So you have to like think about that. You are still considered married. And then you'd have to get a divorce in order for the state to recognize that you are divorced. So I'm not a big proponent of the legal separation. I know why some people do it. Sorry, my cat decided that she was going to come up and visit me during. She's like, "Are you on Zoom? I need to be on Zoom too." Yeah, I'm not a proponent of legal separation just because you do the process, and I understand most people do it for religious reasons. Some people do it because they want to stay on health insurance, so financially, but you're like, you do the process, and then when you decide you have to go to divorce, then you have to do that again. It's hard enough to go through it once. I can't imagine having to go through it twice. So, and financially, you're still considered connected and, liable. So, for a reason your money is tied together, how do you prevent them from bitter doing it or being reckless? If they are bitter, because they're bitter, it's hard to, I feel like, and Lucinda, you can tell, the divorce brings out the worst in everyone. It really does. I've seen some bad, I wanted to say habits, but it's not habits. It's like, people doing
Bad behavior.
Bad behavior, yes.
Yeah.
In this scenario, especially if they are not ready to divorce, and they are in that grieving process, there's a place where people are just angry, right? And I almost think you need to, if you could wait till they're done with that, that would be ideal, right? But you never know when they're going to move into the next phase of grief. but that anger phase can bring out real reckless behavior.
Now, once like somebody files, you're not supposed to be able to move
Like
money or
move
do
money,
anything
you
like
know, you're
that,
not
right?
supposed to be able to do any of that. Do people try? Yes. And it's bad behavior, right? But yeah, definitely. And that's why I like people to kind of look at their finances ahead of time, because if they do change in any way, you can catch them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Money to me and finances are facts. So you have like a point in time, maybe even if it's a year away, where your finances like moved drastically. Where did it go? You can ask an attorney to ask those questions, right? Um, if you make the same amount of money, I still get child support. I definitely could not keep the house without some help. Yeah, that goes back to my house thing, right? I hate to see people using their child support and alimony just to keep a house. I understand that it's emotionally you want to keep it, right? It's a place of refuge. Maybe you're trying to keep it for your kids. But if you need help in order to stay there, um, yeah, that's hard. It's hard, right? There's a calculator for child support in Connecticut, and it is like a balancing of incomes, I would call it. So you're not getting fed the kids aren't getting fed at mac and cheese in one place and lobster in the other, right? It's really a balancing of incomes. But if you're making it similar, it's not going to be as much as you hope for, right? And maybe you have alimony coming to you. Maybe you can negotiate it, but that's hard. If I were to retain you as a mediator, but he then doesn't agree and gets a lawyer, do I need then to get my own attorney? And would I be responsible for payment of the lawyer if I can't afford one, but he insists? If he gets a lawyer, I would always recommend that you do. You definitely need one. You need an advocate for yourself. If he has an advocate for himself, don't go it alone. You need to get one. And would I be responsible for payment? You can always ask the attorney to kind of request that he pay for it. I know some people have the ability to do that if he has the money, but you need to go through the process to do that, of asking. I know it doesn't happen very often, but I know a couple of cases it has.
I know we have to wrap up in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
So if you do have additional questions for myself or for Shell, please shoot us an email. I'll put my email in here again, and Shell, maybe you can do the same.
Yep.
.com. And then we can send out what do you call it? The link for the replay, correct?
Yes.
To everybody who registered.
We'll send out the link for the replay and we'll send out our presentations.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to spend it with us to learn a little bit about Shell and myself and the emotional and practical parts of divorce. So thank you, and reach out via email if you have any questions.
Wonderful. Thanks for keeping me on task here, Lucinda.
I gotta jump off at 12:30. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good rest of your day and a good weekend.